Well, good morning and welcome to Monday morning's thought for today. At one point I wasn't sure whether I would do these again, and over the few weeks I had off, I spent time thinking about it, and let me try and explain why I do the thought for today. At the start it was simply to try and give you a sense of Holy Week way back in April, the start of April, literally at the start of lockdown. And from that it grew the idea, well, I can't get to see my people, I can't get to talk to you face to face the way I want to, and I want to try and explain a bit more about what we're teaching on Sunday. And so I continued it on through the book of Philippians first of all, and then through the book of Ruth in July and August. The idea behind this is simply because there's a need to teach more fully the passage we look at on Sunday. If I took Sunday's passage and broke it down the way I really want to, and looked at it on Sunday that way, it would take us maybe a couple of years to get through each of those books. Some of you might be saying, that's not a bad thing. We're quite happy to sit through 2 years teaching on the book of Philippians or whatever. But it can get quite repetitive and quite wearisome, I suppose, when you're working through one particular book. And so what I plan to do is to look at one passage on a Sunday and then take that passage and break it up and look at it over 5 consecutive days through the week, so that we get a fuller look at that passage. We understand maybe bits of the passage we wanted to ask questions about or think about or tease out a little bit further. And then by the end of the week on Friday, we're looking at the start of the next passage that we're going to look at on Sunday morning. So that's the idea behind it. Now, there will come times when we're maybe doing a different service, and we may park Mark for a while, for a week or so, and then pick it up again when we pick Mark up again. And we have a number of different services happening between now, the start of September, and through to the end of December. But this morning, I really want to focus on just this first verse that we read in Mark chapter 1, verse 1, where Mark says, "In the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God." And this phrase, "in the beginning," we're very familiar with it. We know the book of Genesis starts off with "in the beginning," and we know the book of John's gospel, talks about "in the beginning." And here Mark as well picks up this idea of "in the beginning." In other words, we have to start somewhere. And where are we going to start? We're going to start Mark's gospel looking at the story of Jesus Christ. But we're going back to "in the beginning." And he talks about at the very start of his book, not about the whole ancestry of Jesus in the same way as Matthew's gospel does, nor does he go into the whole idea of the Word and who the Word was as John's gospel, but he really just picks it up and explains it very simply as this is the gospel of Jesus Christ, who was the Son of God. And we thought about that yesterday on Sunday morning. But this idea of gospel, this word gospel, we're so used to saying the gospel according to Mark, the gospel according to John, or Matthew's gospel. And this word gospel was really just an understanding of the phrase, the good news. It was a word which had been used really to bring back the news about how things had gone on the battlefield. And very often, if things had gone well on the battlefield, they were bringing back good news to explain to the people how things had gone. And Mark's really taking this, and he's basically saying, instead of this being a word of mouth thing, because up until then, the gospel had been somebody telling somebody else how things had gone, explaining the good news about, for example, how things had finished in a battle. But here Mark's saying that he's doing it in a different way. He's explaining the good news about who Jesus Christ was. And he's doing it not in a verbal way, not in an oral way, but he's doing it in a written way. He's writing it down so that it becomes a written form. So that then this gospel that we have in our hands, this book of 16 chapters, can then be taken to a church setting, or obviously in Mark's time, maybe around houses where people were worshipping or where Christians came together, and they could study what they had heard about Jesus Christ as a testimony from Mark himself. And he basically bases what he's saying not on his own words, but he's taken really saying, this is what was said by John the Baptist, this was what was said by the prophets. In fact, these are God's words, because it comes back from the Old Testament, back from the prophet Isaiah. And so he's teasing it all out. He's basically saying, this is what you've heard. This is what you should know about. But let me give it to you in how I understand it. And so it is the good news about Jesus Christ. And today, we need good news. We needed good news when we started looking at the thought for the day way back 5 or so months ago. And we still need good news. People are still turning on the news, still hoping to hear some good news, certainly about the coronavirus, certainly about the number of cases falling. And we want to hear good news about hopefully a vaccine coming soon. And yet, by looking to the world, looking to the news to give us good news, we miss the good news of Jesus Christ, because it hasn't changed. The good news is that Jesus Christ came as the answer to all the world's problems. And maybe for you, you need to be listening to the good news. You need to be focusing on what the Bible tells you about Jesus and the good news there, instead of focusing on the world and what it tries to tell you is good news. But those of you who are watching this, who know Jesus Christ as Lord and Saviour, you have good news. You have the good news of the gospel that Jesus Christ came to save sinners like you and me. And it's still our job. We're not going to write books about it. We're not going to call the gospel of Alan Johnson or anything, but we're going to be able to be people who explain the good news to those who need to hear it. And so, if I can challenge you at the start of this to be prepared to meet Jesus, as we thought about on Sunday, but also to be prepared to share the good news with other people, to be the gospel, to be the person who tells people that there is good news in Jesus Christ. So what do you think about that? The word gospel today and the idea of bringing good news to people. This is what Mark's bringing to us, the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Hope you're having a good Monday, and we'll see you again, God willing, tomorrow morning. God bless.